On a quiet, sun-drenched afternoon in the hustle and bustle of city life, a man quietly stepped into a small roadside KFC. No one noticed. That man was Elon Musk, the billionaire known for ideas that aim to change the world. No bodyguards, no spotlight, just a solitary man looking for a simple meal, a moment of peace amidst a whirlwind of responsibilities. But just as he finished placing his order, a soft voice behind him made him stop in his tracks. "If I don't work tonight, Mom won't get her medicine." What happened after that sentence? And why would a man who dreams of colonizing Mars find himself shedding tears inside a small KFC? If you love heartwarming stories, tales that carry lessons of compassion and human connection, don't forget to hit subscribe. Each video here is a tiny slice of life, sometimes fictional, but always filled with very real values. Now let me take you into this special story. Part 1. An unexpected afternoon. It was a Tuesday afternoon that seemed like any other. The sky over the city was a bit overcast, with soft sunlight peeking through, and the wind whispered through the trees, as if to gently remind everyone that autumn had quietly arrived. Inside a high-rise office building, where multi-million-dollar plans were being finalized at breakneck speed, Elon Musk sat silently at his desk. His eyes, usually glowing with world-changing ideas, looked unusually heavy that day. The morning meetings had dragged on. Hundreds of unread emails sat waiting, a constant flow of high-stakes decisions about artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, space exploration, all pressing in like relentless waves. Even after decades of enduring an overloaded schedule, something about today made him want to pause. There was no clear reason, no scheduled break. He simply stood up, grabbed his jacket, and walked out. No driver, no bodyguards. And then something even stranger happened. He decided to go to a place he hadn't visited in years, a small KFC tucked away in an aging shopping district. It was quiet, humble, just like his own mood in that moment. Driving his Tesla through the city streets, Elon gave a small, almost nostalgic smile. Not because anything was funny, but because memories began flooding back. He remembered being a broke college student. Fast food meals had once been his only anchor in a life full of dreams he could barely afford. Now, the world knew him as a tech icon, a man racing toward the future. And yet, in that exact moment, he just wanted to be an ordinary man, craving a crispy drumstick and a little peace of mind. As he stepped into the restaurant, a small bell on the door gave off a soft ting. The scent of fried chicken, hot fries, and fizzy soda filled the air. It was oddly comforting. The cashier looked up, eyes wide in disbelief at the customer in front of her. But Elon just smiled gently and said, "One spicy, crispy chicken combo, please. And a bit of lemonade, too." He chose a quiet seat by the window where the golden light of the late afternoon poured in. It felt like nothing more than a simple meal. But what he didn't know was that in this humble little place, he was about to encounter something that would touch the deepest corners of his heart and change the lives of two young boys forever. Part 2. The whispers behind him. Elon was sipping his lemonade, eyes gazing through the slightly fogged window, where the golden sunset was slowly falling over the worn-out row of buildings across the street. It was a rare moment of peace, as if the world outside had hit pause, just so he could breathe a little deeper. But then right in that stillness, he froze. A whisper. Soft, but urgent. Two young voices filled with worry coming from the table just behind him. "We have to do it tonight. If we don't, Mom won't have her medicine. You know what the doctor said. If we wait any longer, it could be really bad." Elon didn't turn around right away. He just sat there, motionless. That sentence, quiet, calm, almost casual, hit the deepest part of him as a father. He had children of his own. And the thought of a kid carrying the weight of a mother's life on his shoulders made his chest tighten. But what if we get caught? We don't have any money. Where would we even get it? You think we can steal? The younger voice was trembling. A brief silence followed. Then the older boy responded, his voice firm but cracked with fear. "Just from the register. No one will notice. We need the meds for Mom." Elon slowly set his drink down. His fingers curled slightly around the edge of the table. He could no longer hear the hum of the air conditioner or the crackling oil in the fryer. All sounds faded into a kind of heavy stillness. He turned his head gently, careful not to draw attention, and saw the two boys sitting in the corner of the restaurant. The dim lighting cast soft shadows across their young faces, but their eyes held the kind of weight only grown-ups should carry. The older one looked about 13, his eyes determined but tired. The younger boy clung close to his brother, maybe 9 or 10, his eyes wide with confusion and fear, looking for strength in the only person he trusted. Elon understood instantly. This wasn't a story about crime. It was a story about desperation. Two kids, at an age when they should be worrying about homework and video games, were planning to trade their innocence to save their mother. And in that moment, Elon knew he couldn't just sit there and do nothing. Part 3. A gentle decision that changed everything. Elon sat still, his hands loosely clasped on the table, eyes fixed on the two boys sitting quietly in the corner of the restaurant. He wasn't someone who got emotional easily, but in that moment, a feeling stirred inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time, the deep need to simply be a normal human being in the real world. He stood up. Not hurried, not flashy. He walked toward the counter and gave the cashier a gentle smile. "Would you mind helping me with 2 extra to-go meals?" Elon asked, his voice soft but steady. The employee nodded, visibly surprised by the famous customer standing before her. "Please add some water, and pack them separately." He turned back, warm bags of food in hand, and slowly made his way toward the boys. When Elon stood in front of them, both children looked up, their eyes wide with disbelief, as if unsure whether this was really happening. The older boy started to stand, alert and cautious, but Elon had already taken a seat, gently placing the food on the table. "I might have ordered too much. Would you mind helping me finish dinner?" A beat of silence. Then the younger boy looked at his brother. No words were exchanged, but in that glance, filled with hunger, hesitation, and hope, everything was said. Elon smiled. "I'll sit here for a bit, just to listen. You don't have to worry about anything." His voice was calm, never forceful. Just a grown man trying to understand what these two young souls were carrying. The boys slowly relaxed, their hands trembling slightly as they opened the boxes, as if they hadn't had a full meal in days. Elon let them eat in silence. He knew sometimes quiet presence is the most powerful kind of support. After a while, the older boy spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to do something wrong, but I'm scared to lose my mom." Elon nodded, his eyes softening. "I understand. Anyone in your place would feel desperate. But there are other ways, kinder, more human ways to get through hard times." In that moment, Elon was no longer a billionaire. No longer a tech icon. He was just a man. Someone who showed up at the right time, in the right place, so that a child wouldn't have to lose himself to poverty. Part 4. The reason behind the desperation. A family running out of hope. A light breeze slipped through the glass window outside, carrying with it a trace of dusk's dust and the crisp bite of early winter. Inside the KFC, the warmth rising from the freshly opened meal boxes seemed to soften the tension that had wrapped itself around the two boys all afternoon. Elon sat quietly, his gaze gentle, free of judgment or haste. He knew that trust was something you earned, with patience and with empathy. The older boy, Daniel, gently set his paper cup down on the table. After a brief pause, he looked Elon straight in the eye. "Mister, our mom, she has cancer, stage 4, and the insurance doesn't cover everything. The new medication, the only one that might keep her alive, is more expensive than anything we've ever had." The words cut through the still air like a blade. Elon swallowed hard, not out of shock. He had suspected as much, but hearing it spoken aloud by a child still tightened something deep in his chest. Daniel continued, his voice quiet, trembling. "I tried to get work, Dishwashing, delivering food, but nobody would hire me. I'm not old enough. Mom's in the hospital. My little brother had to drop out of school just to take care of her in the afternoons. Today, the doctor said if we don't pay for the meds, they'll stop treatment. Beside him, the younger boy, Evan, sat silent, his eyes red and puffy, clutching a plastic spoon as if it were the last thing grounding him. Elon leaned in slightly, his hands resting gently on the table, offering a quiet kind of strength. "And you thought about taking the money, right?" he asked, his voice low and warm, not a hint of accusation. Daniel lowered his head. "I know it's wrong, but she might not make it. I only have a few hours left. I don't want to steal. I just want to save my mom." Those words left Elon speechless for a moment. Throughout his years building tech empires, he'd heard countless inspiring startup stories. But few, if any, had ever struck the core of him quite like this. This wasn't ambition. This was the raw edge between a child's love and the limits of survival. He looked at the boys, his expression filled with resolve. "Thank you for being honest. You're not alone. I'll help your mom. But in return, I want you both to promise me something. Never trade your conscience for anything, no matter how desperate it gets." Daniel nodded, tears streaming down his face. Elon offered a soft smile. Inside, a plan had already begun to form. Not just to help, but to completely change the lives of these two boys. Part 5. Elon Musk steps in, an unexpected solution and kindness at the right moment. The evening breeze had quieted, but the hearts of the two boys sitting in front of Elon Musk were still pounding with emotion. Daniel and Evan, just kids by age, yet carrying the heavy weight of a family on the edge, were now staring at an opportunity they had never dared to imagine. Elon let out a soft sigh and placed his steady hand on the table. There was no urgency in his posture, no sign of a billionaire throwing his power around. He was simply a man face to face with a moment that called for empathy and action. "I'm going to help your mom," Elon said, his voice deep and resolute. "Not just with today's medicine costs, but with her entire treatment. I have medical teams and resources. I'll contact your mom's doctor and take care of everything." Daniel's eyes widened as if he were dreaming. He turned to Evan, who was still quietly biting his lower lip, overwhelmed by emotion, and whispered, "Is this real? Mom, she's going to get treatment?" Elon nodded and pulled out his phone, dialing a secure line to a private assistant. The call was encrypted, and within just a few minutes, a chain of actions was underway. Hospital records, the treating physician's name, the required medication, insurance status, and a direct wire transfer to the family's medical fund. "I was once an immigrant kid," Elon said as he waited on the line. "No money, nothing but hope. I remember watching my mom faint from exhaustion, working herself to the bone so we could have food on the table. I know how helpless it feels." Silence fell over the three of them. But this time, it wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence of something sacred. Hope being lit again after months of darkness. When the call ended, Elon turned to the boys. "Tonight, I had planned on just a simple dinner. But because of you, this has become one of the most meaningful meals I've ever had. Because I got to do the right thing." He pulled out a small business card, not a flashy gold-plated one, but a modest, elegant card. "This has my contact info. If you need anything at all, just call. But more importantly, keep learning. Grow up to be someone your mother will be proud of." Daniel took the card, his hands trembling. The tears in his eyes were no longer from fear, but from hope. Elon stood, gave a gentle nod in farewell, and walked out of the KFC, leaving behind two boys whose lives would never be the same. A night that had seemed destined for heartbreak had just opened the door to a new chapter, one filled with light. Part 6. A new chapter begins, a fresh start for a small family. 2 days after that fateful encounter at the little roadside KFC, the once dreary apartment where Daniel, Evan, and their mother lived began to feel strangely different. Not because of new furniture, but because of the air itself. It was lighter. The light seemed brighter. Life, after so many months of fear and uncertainty, had quietly returned. Sophie, the single mother who had worked herself to exhaustion with 2 jobs, day and night, now sat on the couch, her hands trembling as she held a folder in her lap. Inside were the full details of her treatment plan, medical expenses, prescriptions, and a long-term recovery schedule, all marked as paid. Clipped to the front was a small handwritten note that read simply, "Everyone deserves care. Elon." She couldn't believe it. When her sons first told her about the man they met at KFC, she thought they'd let their imaginations run wild. But now, with every detail confirmed by a personal call from a renowned physician and Elon's executive assistant, all she could do was wrap her arms around Daniel and Evan, tears streaming down her face. "You did the right thing, Mom," Daniel whispered. "I didn't steal. Mr. Elon. He helped us." No one in their family had ever wished for miracles. All they had ever hoped for was enough to cover a prescription, a decent meal, one night without lying awake over unpaid bills. But now, they weren't just helped, they were empowered, and by the very man who once dared to dream for all of humanity. Elon never showed up again after that night. Instead, he quietly supported them from afar, coordinating with Sophie's doctors, purchasing her a comprehensive health insurance policy, and even setting up a small educational grant for Daniel. "Because," he said through his assistant, "I want him to have a real shot at school." Strangely, Elon never asked for recognition. There were no cameras, no social media posts. His only message was, "Don't tell anyone unless you have to. I didn't do this to be thanked. I did it so your children wouldn't have to lose their childhood." From that day forward, the little family began a new chapter. Each morning, sunlight filtered through their modest window, casting soft light across 3 hopeful faces. Sophie was able to cut back to 1 job and receive stable treatment. Daniel began dreaming of college, and Evan, the little one who rarely smiled before, now did so every single day. And etched in each of their hearts was the image of that man in the black hoodie. Not a billionaire, but a stranger who chose kindness, at the right moment, in the right way. Part 7. When kindness doesn't need a name. An expert's perspective and a closing that lingers in an era driven by speed and digital headlines. It's easy for people to lose sight of life's simplest truths. But sometimes, it's the most ordinary moments. A meal at a KFC, or a quiet conversation between a stranger and 2 boys facing hardship that awaken the deepest part of our humanity. Brian Thompson, a community psychology expert, shared this reflection. People don't need much to feel hope. Sometimes, just a look of understanding, or a hand reaching out at the right moment, is enough to pull a family back from the edge. What stands out in this story isn't just Elon Musk's action, it's how he listened, without judgment, without superiority, with pure empathy, followed by meaningful action. The story of Elon, Daniel, and Evan isn't meant to glorify one individual. Instead, it's a quiet reminder that kindness doesn't need a headline. It doesn't need a hashtag or media coverage to be real. Kindness just needs the right moment, the right person, and the right heart. You may not be Elon Musk. You may not have billions of dollars to pay for someone's medical bills. But you have time to listen. You have the chance to ask someone sitting quietly next to you how they're really doing. Maybe it's a shared bus ticket or a gentle reminder that everything will be okay. And maybe, just maybe, that moment is all someone needs. And if you've been feeling hopeless about the world lately, remember this. A boy was about to make a terrible mistake, but was stopped by a piece of fried chicken and an honest conversation. A mother, exhausted from life, was handed back her hope. And a powerful man chose that one moment to become small, just to do the right thing. Let this story remind you of what matters most in life. We may not be able to change the whole world, but we can always change someone's world. Thank you for spending this time with us. If something in your heart feels a little warmer after hearing this, tap that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And if you've ever had a small moment of kindness, either given or received, leave it in the comments below. You never know. You might be the inspiration someone else is waiting for. On what seemed like an ordinary afternoon, a powerful man made a quiet choice to stop, to listen, and to act. all because of two unknown boys who were simply trying to save their mother. There were no flashing cameras, no press conference captured the moment. There was only kindness, simple, silent, and yet powerful enough to change a life. One day, Daniel and Evan may not just remember the man who bought them a meal or gave them a chance. They'll remember the greatest lesson, that kindness doesn't need conditions, and sometimes it comes from where you least expect it. If this story stirred something gentle in your heart, please click like and subscribe to continue walking with us through more journeys like this. And if you've ever experienced a moment of kindness, no matter how small, don't hesitate to share it in the comments. Because sometimes one simple action from you is someone else's miracle.